it was really a wonderful session from Umesh, and now we are moving for another and an interesting session from Kushan. I hope Kushan you are around. If you can just confirm me.
Yes, Sumit.
Great. So, welcome, Kushan Amarasiri. Kushan will be taking us all through the his very a key talk about test automation framework, which can be developed and created using .NET and C Sharp, using specifically on RestSharp. So when we talk about Kushan, he's having more than a decade of experience into IT and quality assurance space, with a proven track record of helping and supporting a lot of medium and large and small scale testing COEs and infrastructure. He is an excellent and a very active member for with respect to testing community. He likes and keeps sharing a lot of his efforts and experiences during the meetups, training and conferences, and also he's a very active blogger. You can find more about Kushan on the speaker profile page, but with saving that, Kushan, stage is all yours. Maybe you can start sharing and help us through your an interesting talk. Over to you, Kushan.
Yeah. So, Sumit, can everyone see my screen?
Just let me confirm.
Yes, Kushan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kushan.
So, I'm Kushan. I'm from Sri Lanka. So, what I'm going to do today is a very basic kind of automation framework to give you all the idea what the core components that should be in an automation framework, and using RestSharp, which is the alternative of Rest Assured. Which we do it in Java, and it's most used in REST Assured is mostly used in the industry. First of all, before starting the session, there is a kind of a misconception also going on, like API testing is web services testing. So, do you think this is true? Is API testing equals to web services testing?
I
Possibly you
don't
can
think so.
answer in chat.
Pardon?
I think
I
it's
was.
similar. Both
Uh,
is dependent on each other. One.
okay. So, are there APIs which are not web services?
Yes.
Okay. So, do we test those APIs also?
If we deploy that APIs under the web services, then only we can test. If we are
Yes.
not putting under the web services, then obviously it is work as a standalone.
Mhm. Yeah.
Example, Selenium APIs,
Cool.
Java
Good.
APIs.
Good. Chetan, right?
Yes, I am Chetan. I joined from London.
Cool. So that's the entire concept. So we talk about APIs testing, but all the APIs are not web services. There are APIs like RestSharp, Rest Assured, APM, Selenium, and there are other APIs where developers use. So those are also APIs, and we can do those API testing also, which we call like kind of white box testing. So it's not totally web services. So APIs which are available in web services are we call web services. So that just want to clear up the mind and energize you all. So I'm Kushan from Sri Lanka. So I'm the initial creator of the CPWST examination. It was a nice journey with ATA to introduce CPWST, world's first kind of web services testing and test automation, certification for everyone to learn. Currently, I'm working at Codehouse. It's a UK-based organization and which has development in Sri Lanka and Sydney, Australia. I have 14 plus years in automation experience. Worked in frameworks in multiple languages and tools, and I have written 300 articles in LinkedIn. So whatever I learn, I used to blog them so that others can also learn after me. So I share my knowledge. Creator of Selenium tool, which is a Selenium wrapper. which is available in Maven dependency. And also I have created YouTube channel called Global Technical QA. While I learn new tools, I used to, give it away, give those knowledge to the rest of the people. So I have participated dozen of conferences from 2017, ATA GTR. Continuously, I am contributing there. So, and even the DevOps Plus Summit, Selenium Summit. Okay, so what is the automation framework? Any of you all can think. So, automation framework doesn't limit to only web services, right? Today, when we go to an organization, they ask us to not do, throw a scripting, just single lines, single script. So we have to do it in a framework. So what is an automation framework? What do you, Chetan? Can you just?
Yeah,
Anyone?
automation is nothing but a set of guidelines. So
Good.
it is not particularly, we can say you have to particularly follow that guideline, but it is not explicit, what we say, or it is set of guideline and rules we have to follow, but it is not a forcefully we have to use each and everything mentioned as per the framework.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a platform where we use the best practices and standards, okay, so that it will survive in the organization. So if the automation practice has to survive in the organization, we have to at least have a basic kind of an automation framework. So in the core of the framework, there is a tool API, which can be Selenium, which can be rest assured, and or APM or Windows application driver. So if you're doing Windows programming, but we cannot restrict an automation framework to a particular, particular tool or an API. So sometimes we may have to merge two APIs like Selenium with rest assured, because one of my person who was training under me, she had a problem that she had a web service, then she has to verify it in a web UI and then again in a web service. So this is a journey. So, but she has to actually integrate both of them. So we cannot, limit automation framework into one whole API. So we can integrate one or more APIs into it. So there are a couple of components in a framework. So these are kind of best practices that we can have in a framework. So these are kind of core components. One is reusability. So we have to reuse the functions, methods, or even if it's in Selenium, it's the page classes that we have to reuse, so that we can have a kind of minimum work when there is changes happening in basically, you guys know Selenium. If there is a change in the UI components, it's simply go to that page class and change it off. So that's why we promote reusability. And next one is reporting. There should be some kind of a reporting added, so that we know what test cases are passing, what are failing, and why they are failing. So then another thing is data driven, and we have to make it the framework configurable. That means the framework should not run in one environment. It should run in many of the environments like UAT and sometimes production, developer environment and QA, and portable. So all your resource files or any other data files that we are using in the framework should be in the particular framework structure. It should not be in any other places, because once you done with this framework, you might have to post it to GitHub or a source control mechanism, or you simply give it to another person, and all the files should be structured within that framework. And extendability. So extendability means we might have to add more functionality. Say, for example, if it's a Selenium framework, we might have to add the PDF validation. So then we had to add a dependency called Apache PDF box, so that it will actually read the PDF and validate the contents. Image comparison. There are dependencies, so that we can add that dependency and create a utility method for that one which will be reused in all the test cases that we want to validate. So same way in .NET also, the dependencies are not there. That's in Java, but .NET we have to add the NuGet packages, and thereafter we can extend the functionality of the framework. Any questions, guys?
No.
Not a question, Kushan, but if you can maximize your presentation in full mode, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now fine?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. So RestSharp. RestSharp is also it's the alternative in .NET to do web services automation. So it's an alternative for rest assured, and it's used in .NET, and as a NuGet package we can actually get the particular DLL downloaded and installed in our solution, and it helps us to automate web services regression test cases. So for this needed stuff is we need Visual Studio. And for the framework, what I have used is RestSharp, and I have used for reporting the extent reports. And for the data driven, I have used JSON because it's much faster. From the JSON file, I'm driving data, but people can add any other, Excel based or any other file format for their framework. Then I'll just do the demo. So, so the framework is now we have to install all the NuGet packages through the NuGet package solution. So what I have installed here is extent reports for the reporting, and then I have installed NUnit to drive my test cases. That's the test execution add-on. So then I'm using NUnit 3, and apart from that, I'm using newtons of JSON to read from JSON files. Okay. So what I have done is I have done a simple framework. You can add complex to this one, but I want to highlight the core areas. So so in the JSON file, to read the JSON, I have created a JSON reader program. So this will actually read the JSON file. I have to give the item name and the file name, and it will actually fetch the related data from my JSON file, which is stored here. So I have to give the file path and the parameter, name parameter, then it will actually fetch the value parameter. So this is how I have derived my data, but we can add more complexity to this one. We can have like separate data files for separate environments. And then thereafter, what I have done is I have created the request in reusable format so that I can call them in my test cases. So that it's kind of a reusability, but we can add more complex, if we have kind of more, post test cases with different parameters, we can add them in this particular class and call that particular, method. So this is for the delete. So simply what I've done is in the delete, I'm calling the delete URL. So if there are more parameters, we can add parameters for this one. And I'm calling the REST client class. I'm calling the variable REST client from the REST client library. So I'm passing this URL and I'm calling the method delete, and I'm executing it here. Then after executing, I get the response, and I can add more responses if there are more responses coming in. So I'm returning the status code to my from this particular delete request method. So same way, get called, I have called the get method, and then post, I have called the post method here. So the entire request body will be created as a JSON body and sent. Then after that, I'm getting the content string as a response to validate in my test case. Put method is also created here. So push also we can create like this. Patch we can create like this. And after that, what we have to do is I have created the class for to generate extend report. Okay. So
Kushan,
this is,
sorry to
yeah.
disturb you.
Yeah.
Can you just zoom it? We are unable to see the code actually.
Okay.
Little.
You want to expand this?
Yeah, like zoom this window.
Now can you see?
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay. So this is the extend reports class that I have implemented, which will actually call the extend reports API and generate the relevant reports. I have a folder within my framework, and it will actually store according to the file name that I have given, or we can have randomly created, according to the date timestamp, we can create the file name. So here I'm giving the file name to store, and this is the extend create method, and also log report statements and flush find report. Flush report will actually call the extend flush, which will generate the HTML extend report. So this is the whole implementation of the extend report. And since you guys didn't see, this is the implementation, simple implementation of how the how the delete is called, the reusable. So the main concept is called all these get calls, post calls and put calls should be done reusable way. And then here it's the get method. So I'm simply calling the get method, and after sending, I have to return the particular status code or what I have to verify from the method to my test case. So this is the post call. So I'm sending the body here as a JSON body. Then put call. So all these are reusable, and this is where I read the JSON file. So I simply have to give the file path and the name parameter, and it will fetch me the relevant, the value. So then after that, it will be my test. Simply, I am calling the 3 test. So this is the get test. So what I'm doing is I'm calling the get JSON file, and I'm reading from the JSON file. Then here JSON reader. So from the JSON reader, I'm reading the data JSON file and getting the request for get. And I'm calling the class. I'm creating an object from my get class, get request class. And thereafter, what I do is I check and send the get request, and I assert whether this is assert is true, whether this contains okay, right? So same way, I also kind of log this result in my extend reports. So whether it's passing or failing, and then my post request. So I'm sending the creating my JSON body here and sending my post request to my call. Then after that, what I'm doing is I'm reading the email. I'm checking whether the my result that is sent here from this post request call contains the email that is there in my data.json file. So once it's done, I create a, for further clarification, I create the post report for the post request, and then for the delete. So this is also where I read the delete request call and I check whether it's okay, right? So then it will generate me the report for the delete request. So like that, put request, or the same way I'm calling the test. So I can run this. So it's executed and reports are stored in the reports folder like this. So it will generate. So if we have more get calls, it will generate over here, and we can just navigate and see what are the status of the get report, get calls, and what are the results from our post request. So these are all logged. So test is passing, and this is what I have got. So we can actually customize and log. If the value is there, we can change these methods in the reusable request as and when we need it to, according to our business requirements. So these are the reports that are generated. Any questions, guys? So this is a very simple level framework that I want to demo it to you all. There are very complex ones we can actually do, but we need to tweak around with the code and tweak around with the framework to make it go ahead. Any questions, guys?
Suppose if we have a public API, so we need
Mhm.
to pass the token, right?
Yes.
So how can we handle through this framework?
So if we are going to pass a token from one request from to the other, we have to actually use environment variables, so that we take the value from the, say for example, there's the first one, we send some authentication data and get the token. Then that token should be stored in an environment variable so that we can use it across these methods. So then we have to change the framework a little bit and the methods.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Kushan,
that's what.
there is one. There
Yeah.
is one question for you, Kushan. Like, if you
Yeah.
can go to reports. So Praveen is asking, are we
Mhm.
getting method-wise report and description for every call or not?
Yeah, method wise, yes. So this
No, like
framework is.
my question was that, hi Kushan, Praveen
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
So
Praveen.
the
Yeah,
question
Praveen.
is that, are you not clubbing the result together in a single report, or are you
We can do it.
creating?
We can do
Yeah.
it. No problem. We can club it. So simply in this one, I'm just categorizing into separate ones. We can club it. It's matter of changing the code and doing it.
And can we implement Spec Flow along with this,
Yeah, definitely.
including this?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's matter of Spec Flow is a kind of BDD. So we just simply create the feature files and then generate it, and then thereafter for those given when then statements, we write the same framework level code.
Okay.
We use the methods which we can actually expand more those reusable methods, and then thereafter we call those reusable methods within those given when then methods that has been generated.
Does this what do you call this RestSharp will support only with NUnit or any other MS test or XUnit
MS test
also?
also it supports.
Okay, thank you.
This is a independent kind of an API which will help us to do, like automation, like Selenium in Java, right? We can run it in JUnit and TestNG. Similar, this can be run in other execution frameworks.
Okay.
So Kushan, there is one more question from Harish. He's trying to ask, maybe I will fold his question in two part. First, he's trying to say that you have shown us a sequential execution, but we can also do a parallel execution in this
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And when we do parallel, then how we kind of control event-based, execution of method. For example, delete should only be called after creation is done successfully. So maybe that kind of a verification, validation, and handling, if in the framework we want to do, if you can showcase.
Yeah. So if creation is done, can you repeat again, Sumit?
Yeah, so delete method should only
Yeah.
be executed if creation is done successfully.
Yeah.
So he's trying to understand how we can do this in the script, or maybe if framework is giving that kind of handles or something like that.
Maybe like we can use in unit based. I think attributes are there, right? Depends on. So we can use something like that.
Okay, so
We can
does this answer
prioritize
your
the
question,
origin.
Harish? Yeah, yeah. Okay. And parallel execution definitely we can do, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you will be creating another class. Okay, yeah.
Yes, like rest assured also we can use parallel executions. If we are using TestNG, it works fine. But when I use parallel execution in Selenium, there was a problem. Like it was going to the other, browser and typing in when there are two things going on similarly. Because if we are doing in two browsers, but here we can do it parallel execution.
Okay. So Kushan, like, are you done like with the demo, or you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
anything? All right. Okay. So let me just check if there is any question. Okay. There is another question from Harish is asking if there is any other approaches which you can possibly share for these scenarios, maybe best practices or something like that.
Okay, so the best practices in the device is number one, we have to use the coding standards. Basically, in my organization, we actually I'm using RestSharp, but we are not on into more towards web services, but we are towards Selenium. So in my company, we are a Microsoft company, so Microsoft kind of platinum partner, and we had to develop our framework in kind of C sharp. So for the coding, we actually use the coding practices in our company, the developers. There is a coding, documentation there. So there is a specific application called Codesi in my organization, and if we set off code like to the GitHub, if we push codes without a standard, that particular robot will actually scan the code and say this cannot be pushed because of these kind of code malpractices going on where we haven't used the coding standards. So we had to use the coding standards, and we don't actually create temporary variables. When we want to assign a value from a particular element, we don't use a temporary element then and we use that variable in the assets. So we have to directly put it so that we reduce the number of lines. Those are the coding practices. Then automation coding standards should be written. Then apart from that, we can use different kind of reporting frameworks. We can use Grafana for this, uh, Kibana or Grafana, and we can extend report is one way. There are there is another approach called Allure dashboard. If the organization wants a dashboard, so we can use more better reporting mechanisms. And yeah, BDD is not actually a mandatory thing, but if the organization needs it, if it's a requirement, we can add the spec flow into it. So those are the things actually, but we have to the best part of rather than going into a tool and using this APIs and doing automation, is we have the full control on this, so that we can change here and there and customize it. But if we are going to a tool, it's bit of we are like limited to certain aspects of the tool, and we have to be restrained to it. So that's my part. What I want to say, the standards, we have to use the coding standards and automation standards in the organization.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
hope that answers Harish's question. So I'm just checking if you have other question from anyone. So I see there is no question. So I have one question,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
wanted to ask.
Mhm.
So basically, I mean, you have showcased maybe at a high level, but just
Mhm.
trying to understand in terms of scalability of this kind of a framework. If
Mhm.
you want to do a kind of a things like contract API testing and use kind of a mocking for API testing particularly.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious to understand if that support is readily available, or if not, then how we can integrate with kind of a simulators and service virtualizations and use mocking to be able to start on contract API testings like that.
Yeah, so if mocking, I don't think this is supporting, but say for example, we can integrate these because the code, these are code-based kind of API tools. So if you want, if there are DLLs or NuGet packages that supports mocking, it's simply integrating this and calling those method API calls within this one. So
Okay.
that's how we do it. It means like we can add functionality easily for these things rather than if we go to Catalan Studio, we are restrained. If it doesn't have, we have to have add-ons. If the add-ons is not there, then we are kind of restrained. But here, if we are using, if we want scalability, we can add scalability where we can simply research and find the suitable. There are NuGet packages, so we can integrate by RestSharp.
Okay, okay. Then
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, I'm not sure
Mhm.
if you have shared already, but if you can share this link with all the audience, maybe they
Sure.
can go and really have a kind of a deep dive and understand all the
In
benefits of this.
RestSharp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay, I will send you the link.
for the audience. Yeah.
It is the link. So we can, I think you can do synchronous, asynchronous calls and everything. Authentication is there. Parameters, how to send is serializing. All these are there in this particular. That is not, there is no much, no, it's a kind of a big documentation in here, but pretty much it will help us to do the web services automation. But there's another counterpart called Unirest. It's much, I think, little bit. The Unirest is kind of Sumit supports other languages too.
Okay.
So that's we can actually use RestSharp or Unirest to do web services automation. So most people are used they have used RestSharp, but there is another counter API that is there for web services automation called Unirest. People
Okay.
can
Okay.
also I will find and Unirest C#. Okay, I can send that to also link.
Yeah, that will also be good. Yeah.
Yeah. These are the two alternatives when we go to code-based web services automation.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think, yeah, it is really good. Maybe, it will help these links which you have shared with everyone. So, any other question from anyone? We have few more minutes left for questions. So, yeah, if you have any question. All right. Okay. So, question, let me take control back. I will
Yeah.
possibly share the slide. Yeah. Just give me a second. All right. Okay. Yeah, I hope you can see my screen, all of you, once again. And if anyone can confirm quickly.
Yes, Sumit, it's visible.
Great, thanks Harsh. Yeah, so thank you once again, Kushan, for really a wonderful session and a great insight about the framework which you talked, and also thanks for sharing the links. I'm sure members can go and have a kind of a deep dive for that particular framework. And feel free to reach out to Kushan if you have any questions on that particular framework. And I think some kind of a collaborations and you want to contribute, definitely it is really good to have as a community. So thank you, Kushan. Once again, thanks for a wonderful session.